Let's get to the point. This video today is about comic book lettering. And I've seen several professionals and amateurs online, on videos, on articles, and other things talk about how the tails of a speech bubble, or how the tail of a speech bubble needs to point as closely to the character's mouth as possible. That part of the merit of a good letterer in comics, a good lettering person, is that they will make sure that the tail of every speech bubble, that they will position the speech bubbles in such a way that the tail will be as close to the character that is talking. And I think their argument is that this leads to or creates more clarity in the reading experience of the comic. I think that the claim is complete bogus. And I'm going to show you why that is not true. That is not the way it's been done. And there's really no merit to that argument whatsoever. So let's take an example. We'll start here with, we have a Silver Age Spider-Man right here. Okay. This is Spider-Man number 55, published in 1967. And it is lettered by Sam Rosen. Now, if you're not familiar with Sam Rosen, this guy has been lettering comics since the very early, you can see this issue is a Stan Lee, John Romita issue. Stan Rosen has been inking since the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby era of Fantastic Four. He was a major lettering workhorse for Marvel Comics for, I think, about 3 decades or longer. This guy lettered through the 60s, through the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. I believe he stopped lettering sometime in the 90s. And here we go, a splash page right here, and look at this. You can see all this dialogue right here, and all of it points to the character that's talking. None of it is pointing anywhere near Spider-Man's mouth. Let's continue. Let's go to a page with heavy dialogue, a lot of conversation. Here we go, right here. 3 characters having a conversation. Look at this. This is pointing to the forehead, top of the head. The tail's pointing to the character that is talking. We do not see, even here, very easily they could have made this probably so that it was positioned lower and pointing to the mouth, but it is not. It is pointing at the character that is speaking. So whoever got this one's closer to the mouth, but still not. And if you look at like a panel such as this, most of the decision making made on this lettering has to do with how it's going to fit into the composition of this panel, how much you're going to notice it, how much it's going to interrupt with the art, how much it's not going to interrupt. Basically what you're dealing with here is a graphic design issue. Okay? And it's a creative issue, and to put dumb rules in like, well, the tail of the speech bubble needs to be as close to the character's mouth as possible is garbage. Okay? We see we've got 2 speech bubbles here. Why aren't these speech bubbles right there? Because it's going to interrupt the gestural action of this arm and this clenched fist. Okay, if we move that over so that this tail was going right to the guy's mouth, you would essentially ruin this shot. Okay, this artist wants to show that Doc Ock, he's mad. He looks angry. He's got his shoulders rolled forward and he's got his fist clenched. And you know that it's him talking. You do not have to have that tail extended all the way to his mouth, interrupting the flow of this pose because of some stupid rule. Up here, this speech bubble, this tail is pointing to his head. It doesn't even extend close to Doc Ock's head. Why? Once again, there's a nice compositional flow to this drawing. This is a very circular pose. Beautiful. I mean, John Romita, one of the greats. This is why John Romita was one of the greatest comic book artists in the history of the medium. Look at how this has this beautiful circular, and it leads your eye around to the television screen where these two guys are interacting. We've got, both characters pointing at each other. We've got the showing the anger, moving in a nice flow. And if Sam Rosen would have dropped these speech bubbles down into this shot, he would essentially be ruining what John Romita was trying to do. And you know what? The clarity is there. You can tell very well who is speaking and who is not without having these tails point at these characters' mouths. And I can go through this comic and continue, and you're going to see panel after panel the same thing. Here we go. Spider-Man leaped into action. The tails are pointing at the character, maybe towards the head. This is pointing towards his armpit. And, you could be like, was his armpit talking to me? Or do you need to have this point to his mouth? No, you're just if that's your critique of this, you're a dummy, you're a moron, and you're too stupid to be reading comics, okay? You should go read books because you're not smart enough to read comics. Period. All right, so there we go. So that's Sam Rosen, 1960. Here we go. Here's Conan the Barbarian. This is the same letterer. Sam Rosen again. But here we go. 10 years later, we're in 1979. Now we're looking at John Buscema, the other great John of the Marvel Comics. And right away, I'll just open to a random page. Here we go. And look at this, lettering, not pointing to the mouth, pointing to the character. That's close. You got something close to the mouth. Why? Because it works right there. It works with the composition. Nothing's pointed at a character's mouth here. We've got 1, 2, 3 speech bubbles. They're all whispering in these speech bubbles. And, this is pointing to her hips. This is pointing to her head. That's pointing to his head. We know who's talking, though. The clarity is there. So once again, you can see same letterer. He did not change over the years. There was no evolution where all of a sudden he said, you know what, I need to push this craft further and make the art better by making all these things point to their mouths. All right, let's go to somebody else. Here we go. Here's a Gru the Wanderer, 1980s now, okay? The great Sergio Aragonés, one of the greatest cartoonists of all time. And who lettered him here? Well, of course we know who lettered him. The great Stan Sakai. Is that how you say it? I always said Stan Sakai, but I believe it's Sakai. This guy, Stan Sakai, if you are not familiar with him, he is the creator and artist behind Usagi Yojimbo. This guy has lettered a ton of Grus. I don't know if he's lettered all of them, but I know he's lettered, if he hasn't, he's lettered most of them. This guy has lettered Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This dude knows lettering. He is one of the, real deal letterers that's lettered on the most iconic comics in the industry that have ever been published. And once again, let's see, right here, pointed at Gru's nose, not going to his mouth. It's close, but it's not there. There's one that's going to the mouth, okay? Let's go up the page. Look at this. We've got one that's going close to the mouth, pointed at the guy's head, Right here, let's get the focus, pointed at Gru's head. Okay, I can continue and show you that the majority of these speech bubbles, here's a conversation, pointed at the guy's head. Why is this not lowered? He could have easily centered this speech bubble and made the tail go right to his mouth. Why did he not do that though? Because there's this right here. This connection between these two cartoon characters is important. He's pushing back. He's got his hand at Gru. Gru's looking him in the eye. He's got his eyes closed saying, I'm going to ignore you. That is telling me what I need to know. And then we get the dialogue up here because he did not want it to interrupt the exchange between these two characters. He could have moved this to there and had the dialogue go straight in, or the speech bubble go straight in, like I said. He chose not to. Again, same thing. Pointed at Gru's head. It's pointed at the character that is talking. It does not have to point to the mouth. Now let's go to even more modern. Here we go. Batman, Judge Dredd. This is 1990s now. This is the heyday of Simon Beasley in a lot of ways. Everybody was copying this guy. This is a great comic book, iconic comic book, well, beautifully painted and illustrated. And the letterer, who is the letterer for this comic book? Now, the letterer for this comic book, I know who it is. It is right here, Todd Kleen. The great Todd Kleen. Now, this guy, Todd Kleen, if you're not familiar with him, he's got a website up. This guy has been lettering for a long time. I believe he is still lettering. He makes all kinds of like prints and posters with lettering. He's done collaborations with like Alex Ross and stuff on comic book, on like an illustration that goes with his comic book lettering. So this guy considers lettering, he considers it an art form. You go to this guy's website, he's got pages and pages about lettering, and in a way, yes, he is responsible for a lot of these so-called rules that people think they have to follow when it comes to lettering, and I'm here to tell you that you don't have to follow those rules. But let's see, does he point the speech bubbles to the character's mouth? No, he does not. Let me get the shadow out of the way. Look at this. There's Batman talking. Points to the character. That's not pointing to his mouth. He would have had to drag that tail down. Doesn't point to the mouth. Let's see. Let's look at another panel. Right here, two guys talking. Judge Dredd. It's pointing to his head. Pointing to his head. More dialogue. Pointing to the guy's head. This panel here, this bubble right here, is just pointing up towards the character. He is not making every single thing point the guy's mouth. Here's a cool shot of Superman, and there you go. You got all these speech bubbles are pointing to the character. They're not pointing to the mouth. Why? Because why would you want to look at this beautiful painting that, you know, an emotion that Simon Beasley put into this? Why would you want to ruin it by dragging a speech bubble all the way down to the guy's mouth or closer to the mouth when you can get the job done right there and you know what's happening? So, once again, look, there's another girl talking. It's pointed at her hair. So, that's all the examples I'll use for now. I can pull out more and more throughout comics, throughout comic history, and show you how this philosophy that by these lettering nerds, and they become lettering nerds because that's all they're capable of doing. I do not mean that to insult those that are the masters. There are guys that are masters of lettering, and I give them full respect. And but even if you are a master of lettering and you start imposing ridiculous rules on the art, such as that the tail of the speech bubble needs to point directly to the character's mouth, then I denounce you as a master and no longer give you my respect. That's it. That's all I'm going to say for this video. Good day.